Namaskar. We received hundreds of your thought provoking questions. Hear the answers directly from the founders of Praveg. Let the belligerence begin.
So, Instagram, we've sold our souls and we're on Instagram. No, all yours.
Okay, so the first question, I think we got this question 50 times. When is the product launching?
We know we'll tell you at the end of the AMA. That's the last piece de resistance.
Okay, are guys only interested in making car, or you guys have another idea like bikes, etc.?
Essentially, what the delta of technology, if there is any meaningful delta that we can bring into a product which can help improve life, we'll make those things. So today, in fact, our core business is in fact energy industry. So primarily, the bread and butter for the company already is the energy business, where we supply a lot of stuff to defense forces, we supply a lot of stuff to data centers and other applications like that, energy batteries essentially.
An answer we like, there are multiple answers for that, but one answer we'll ask is we are a deep tech lab. Basically, we are engineered and organized to deliver products in the field of mobility and energy, and then we can make everything. To answer your question, do we have a bike in preparation? No, but we could make one very easily. Then we have Prakash. Instead of building cheaper economy cars for a larger market, especially in India, why has Praveg chosen to go premium?
There are two analogies for it. So first, we can take a look at what the plasma TVs and LCDs have taken the journey so far. If you remember, 15 odd years ago, each plasma TV would cost 4, 5, 6, 8 lakh rupees. And if those companies had not built those VGA level resolution plasma TVs or LCD TVs, today we would not be in a generation where you can have a 4K display on your mobile phones. That is driven by scale of manufacturing, adoption rates, etc., etc. You cannot build technologies suddenly for scale without going through an initial ramp up. And it's true for almost every technology out there. What is the most important thing which ties into a lot of the other questions over here is we are at the very beginning of an innovation curve in electric vehicles.
Pratik, go ahead. So cool. Congratulations, Sid.
Awesome.
Any message for him? Can we talk about the features how you can sing inside the car because he's a singer?
It's got the best music system in the world, the Pravegs, and it's really going to be an amazing music system. The frequency level can go below 20 hertz, 14 hertz. So 14 hertz is when you stop listening to the frequency and you start feeling the music. You start feeling things, you can't hear it anymore. So it's perceptible but not audible. And yeah, I think that harkens back to what his music is also like. We can clear out a crowd, we can all go singing. We can add riot control as a business stream. I'll be on the mic. This actually happened, you know.
Yeah.
We were in a Yakuza bar, underground Yakuza bar. And he started to do karaoke because those guys insisted. He didn't do it. And it cleared out the room. It was the room of Yakuza.
So then can the car, if because we have suicide door and like speakers inside the doors, if we open the suicide doors, it can become a music system for outdoor.
Exactly.
Yuvraj, awesome.
Thank you.
Nalgohek, will you be selling in Europe when released? So it's about the question about, is it a product only for India or is it a global product for a global market? When you make a fleet product, it's a product made for cities, right? And then you start to see the world through the lens of cities, not really the lens of countries. So if you look at the big cities of India, Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Chennai, whatever, maybe it will be the first target. So we'll start in India, but then it will be easier to go to Dubai or Singapore or London or Tokyo than maybe a small city in India.
The real reason why actually cars exist as a mainstay of modern cities is in fact because of the Americans. There is a very interesting thing that Henry Ford did back in the early 1900s. Essentially, there was a policy implemented by them which said that we must demarcate industrial, commercial, and residential areas. Therefore, you had city centers, the CBDs, they're called.
Central Business District.
Central Business District. Then you have an industrial area which is very far, and you have the entire suburbia spread all around the city. And the only means of commuting in an architecture like that would be cars. Therefore, huge car sales for the Americans.
Karan B. Singh, what do you see as your biggest challenge in the next 2 years? DL Samira 91. So sleek, looking forward to your launch. What is Praveg's competitive advantage over other EV players in the market?
It's going to be awesome. The best music, the best entertainment, the best suspensions, the best of everything. And fully repairable, fully updatable, full long life, no planned obsolescence, respects your privacy.
Arshu Gupta, when can we see your vehicles on Indian roads?
Soon. At the end of this week.
Reda Raghavan, what is the max distance your EV can go with full charge? It's on the website.
The new one will be 500 kilometers
plus. Venkit Yesan, what are the key qualities you look for if you want to hire someone in your team?
Great this thing. Dhaval, do you have a word for it?
Persistence, the willingness to not give up. Because what we do is hard. Making changes like this is hard. We have to go through multiple iterations. These things do not pop out in the first attempt or the first trial. So, yeah.
Persistence.
I would say autonomy also, because it's a tough company, but the levels of management are very, very low. Everyone runs inside the company its own, like lab, I would say, or, like a design studio or whatever. It's not, like a traditional company with a pyramid with, like thousands of layers of management. You need to be able to figure out what you have to do. There is like unlimited amount of work to make in this company. So you need to be able to know what to do and execute.
So persistence, autonomy, I would say curiosity. But overall, attitude, skills can be gotten up. With enough persistence and curiosity and self-management, you can do whatever in the world you want to.
Mayur, what's the 10-year goal for Praveg?
A would be that to move the needle of technology from extremely pervasive to, rather not pervasive, but very lecherous technology paradigm to a paradigm where ownership can truly rely with the person of their own data and everything else. That would be a softer goal. As a harder goal in terms of what are you doing, I would say 1 million cars per year, that is 10 lakh cars per year, and an equal number of batteries in capacity for energy application.
Alpha 79, when it will officially launch? And the next question, I don't know if it's the same question, green hydrogen cars. Many people ask that, basically there is this thing where you have the traditional, like petrol, diesel car industry moving to electric. So where is hydrogen there? Is it the next step, or is it like a parallel step, or is it for different kind of products?
Personally, I'm not convinced about hydrogen, especially for this specific application of small cars.
Yeah.
There are applications, there are very good use cases for it.
Yeah, like boats, planes, trucks, spaceships. But for cars, you don't believe in it? Can you elaborate a bit on that? For people to understand why,
Okay, so hydrogen is, like you guys might have read in the 6 standard, that hydrogen is a gas which burns with a pump. It's a volatile gas. Challenges to be solved if we want to, do this on each vehicle, have a hydrogen fuel cell on a vehicular level. So fuel cells are something which, humanity has figured out. It's still growing very fast, but it's not at all bad as of today. But then how do you manage how do you transport hydrogen from here to there? Or how do you, hydrogen needs to be stored at very, very high pressures. Generally, like whatever cars in production, Toyota Mirai is a very good example of that. If you look at the hydrogen, the tank which stores hydrogen in that vehicle, it's built out of carbon fiber. And it's not, generic carbon fiber. There is a specific type of weave used to build that tank. That is expensive. then the receptacle via which, theoretically it's very easy to make say the way we fill CNG in our cars today. Theoretically it's very straightforward to do it in some similar manner. But again, the variables which end up changing are the pressures required are way too high. Hydrogen fundamentally has very different behaviors compared to CNG or LPG. Okay, I'll just quickly compare the back-end packaging of, say, a hydrogen fuel cell vehicle and an electric vehicle. An electric vehicle will have a motor between each wheel, considering it's a four-wheel drive, and a battery pack under the floor, and that's pretty much it. The rest is, relatively generic stuff like suspension. You have a trunk in most electric vehicles, etc. Now, if you look at the hydrogen fuel cell vehicle, you have an electric motor, you have a fuel cell, you have a tank to store up all of this hydrogen. And if we start adding complexity of, say, pour ammonia inside your vehicle, convert that to hydrogen, then send it to. So, it's a lot going on. It's a highly complicated.
Right. So, your energy input is extremely useless because it's going in all these wasted processes.
Right.
With the number of steps of conversion losses that you take in hydrogen, you end up at an efficiency of 36 to 60% depending on the method, whether you use a carrier or whether you use pure hydrogen itself. But essentially, instead of doing that and having so many conversion losses in the back end, you just put electricity in and take electricity out via the motor. It's a much simpler process fundamentally. Much higher efficiency process rather. So cars will ultimately be greener with that. You want to answer why hydrogen killers you need weird tanks?
So, if you want to store any gas in adequate quantities, you have to compress it, you have to turn it into a liquid. And as examples, all of us drink soda or carbonated drinks. It's a relatively straightforward tank. And so CO2 is relatively easy. The amount of pressure required to utilize a reasonable amount of gas is, not that bad. Same for oxygen tanks that, for example, a lot of hospitals use, literally every hospital uses. And when it comes to, say we figure out a way to, like cost and all of the other variables are covered, at the end of the day you still need range. Range would still be an expectation out of hydrogen fuel cell vehicles. Now to get a specific amount of range, you need to carry a specific amount of gas, and the only way to do that, in small cars you have limited amount of space. So one of the only ways to do that is to compress more, increase the pressures at which it is stored.
And then what happens is that the hydrogen atoms are so small that they slip through, or molecules rather, H2, that they slip through the intramolecular gaps of any other material. So if you have molecules like that, the hydrogen will just go through the center one and just slips through. So it gets very complicated very quickly to store pressurized hydrogen.
But Praveg is agnostic in terms of technology. If we don't take a technology, it's just because it's less good.
First, we imagine what the world needs to be and how it can be better in so many ways, and then you build a technology for that. It's never the other way around. You can't. Then you become a Android versus iPhone battle or a Mac versus PC, and we all know PC is better.
We definitely love to add technologies, but where it makes sense, not just for the sake of it. Like, it can be argued that why don't we have nuclear cars? We have nuclear aircraft carriers, submarines. Similar fundamentals apply.
Totally for it.
Megha Bansal, why this name? That's not a good spelling of the name first. So what does it mean?
Highest speed in Sanskrit. Simple.
Manas Nikhil, how important is a mechanical engineer in the EV industry? That's a good question because many people think that if you have a mechanical engineer degree, you're not fit for the upcoming world. Is it true or not?
Mechanical engineering or mechanical engineers are very important. If you have, imagine that bodies only had a brain, no hardware. Useless.
And the mechanical engineer department of Praveg is one of the largest in Europe. It's a huge part of the team. Yeah.
And mechanical, it does not like many people think mechanical engineering or hardware or these fundamentals or the concepts of physics only apply to, say, a structure or a chassis of a vehicle or, say, the suspension or a spring. But if you think about it, like, inside this device there is a small chipset which is shrinking rapidly. So even that is a piece of hardware. These concepts apply on that level as well.
Yeah.
So would you recommend a youngster to study mechanical engineering today?
For sure.
For sure. In fact, the physical world is the only way all of these technologies can be manifested. If we claim some numbers for the performance of our vehicles, for that to happen in the back end, there are massive currents flowing through the wires. So, everything is correlated. So, it cannot be that we are in one silo, just mechanics, and things work out.
Yeah.
MFSE Pulvedak. Do you have plans to export? You reply this question?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we do. And in fact, we started.
Yeah, batteries.
Yeah, for batteries.
So 60-70% will be exported in the future.
The next nickname is not a nickname, it's a Wi-Fi password. Tell us about your journey in brief.
I'll go quickly. We started in 2011 to make good enough electric cars, and then we realized also what the way vehicles are being made, the freedom aspect, etc. And then we kind of started to build out on those principles more than just an electric car. So what we are building today is an organization which can bring you technologies respecting rather products that will allow you to take back control, whether it's your time, resources or sovereignty. That's broadly it. We started in Rajasthan 2011 and we moved to Bangalore, this facility and that facility in 2020, 22 and 22 respectively.
Next question is quite similar. The Varnaval. Sir, how you started your company, from where the idea came and how you implemented it. I'm an engineer student and want to start my own tech startup.
Cool, do it. Absolutely do it. Just make sure that it's worth something, in terms of do something hard. Don't do easy stuff. There's enough of that.
Yeah, if you're an engineering student, we need to remember that not many people know that, but India is the third largest startup market in the world. So for sure, it's a beautiful, huge, enormous market for startups and for entrepreneurs. But it's a software-driven, country.
Service.
Yeah, it's a service industry, software, apps, e-commerce, everything. So big ecosystem, but not that huge in pure engineered products. Akhilesh 97. What were the key decision factors in sticking to a B2B model? Is there a roadmap to finally tap into the B2C space and compete head-on with mega auto brands that have invested big in alternative fuels and batteries?
End of video, but our batteries are some of the best in the world.
Good time. Opportunities for students in Praveg.
A ton of them. Careers@praveg.com, spam them.
PR-31. How is the current political scenario going to affect the supply chain and the prices?
Oh, that's
a deep question.
Semiconductors are shortage, lithium is in a shortage, everything is in a shortage basically in this world. Resistors, capacitors, you name it, everything is in a shortage. And those are the opportunities, in fact, for other people to start companies out of. For example, if someone wants to start a charger manufacturing company, now is the time. For example, if someone wants to start a resistor manufacturing company, now is the time. Everything in shortage is an opportunity for others to actually start becoming our vendors, hopefully, as well. Semiconductor is a bit more tricky than that. And I think that will be a huge bottleneck. Everything else can be figured out, honestly. But yeah, you're right. I mean, globally, it is now time. Everyone has woken up and realized that we need to be resilient. We need to make sure that as a nation, we are able to do things. I think India has been on the right track in that way, fortunately. And we are so well placed in the world to start supplying things. A lot of companies who buy batteries from us or want to buy batteries from us don't want Chinese batteries. Basically, that is the first part of their brief, let's be honest.
And it's not because they are bad. It's not because China is bad and they don't know to make products. They make very good batteries. That's not the problem.
They're the best in the world.
They are the best. They just this dependency is a big problem.
Yeah.
Ravikant, is Praveg hiring GET?
Yes, we are. Careers@praveg.com. Please do apply.
Somya Tiwari, how do you manage to build a team of dedicated and enthusiastic people?
The challenge is such that we are able to fortunately attract amazing people. And then, 80% of the people are great. We understand what the challenge is about. And then, of course, 20% we always have this thing. But it's super fun. We've been able to go through various things. We do certain operations, such as hiring in the US, hiring in other places. We did this thing where we tried to work with the Indian government. We were talking about the Russia operation, the Ukraine.
Yeah, sure.
So in fact, we started to publish in Russian and other Slavic languages. Slavic languages. That anyone from a war-affected region may come and join Pravesh. And in fact, almost we have 3,000 applications from there. Slavic engineering is very, very good because the fundamentals about mathematics and everything is super, super good. Not just computer science, but mechanical thermal, every kind of engineering is very good. They understand fundamentals. And they can do it very good. However, we kept pursuing the government all through the month of March and almost through half April before we gave up. On 29th April, Biden announced a $33 billion package to move talent from Russia to the US. I think it is a cultural ecosystem that we need to build because, harkening back to what I was saying before, ultimately the US is so great as a nation because they have put a straw in the heads of everyone across the world. They take the best people from here, the most hardworking, the most dedicated, the most ambitious people they leave for the US because that is the land for them. That is where they're allowed to be and grow and do so many things. Here we have a lot of challenges, not just fighting big guys, not just fighting big other lobbies, but also entirety of intelligence agencies across the world. And it's a free market; it's not controlled like the American and Chinese market. And when you're losing talent on the back end, it starts to be a drag. So what we're trying to do is really build a generation of, that's a pitch to all the people who might be listening in the US or on this. What we're looking for are people who have been through cycles of automotive and all of these things, and more importantly, understand and imbibe the culture of being able to do things and build things. And we don't want you or your peers or what you bring as IT, even if you bring something to me or to Pravesh, in 1 year it will be outdated. We're at the beginning of an innovation cycle. Every year we're moving very rapidly. But what we need are people who can build and train an entire generation of people with us so that that culture can start somewhere in India. And there are possibly a lot of companies in India that today. Aether is not there, a bunch of others to start leading. But I think exciting times. But if we don't accept what real work, engineering, sciences, and pushing off to the place, we will ultimately be what we are so far as a service provider, contract manufacturer, people who have 4 million engineers in one company, but they haven't built one app that is on any of our phones. I think we are at that flashpoint that we need to really, really put a lot of energy into ourselves as a nation, ourselves as a people, and make sure that we go over the hump and make sure we come out stronger from this point and not just be service people.
Then we have Ankesh Saha. What are your expectations and estimation in terms of mass adoption of EVs in India? What should be done more in terms in terms of building support infra, recharging station, battery swap, and training more skilled workers for EV to be a more viable option? Expectation, in terms of adoption, I think India, Indian people have this huge strength to, adapt very, very easily to a new tech. They can switch, in 18 months, you can have a full country of 1.4 billion people, massively adopting a new technology. So that I have absolutely no doubt. And it's something we hear sometimes, is people still thinking there is a fight today between the petrol, diesel, and EV. The war is over. It was the case a few years ago. It was a debate, is it coming or not? But it's like asking yourself, in 2010, will internet be something big in the future? It's done, it's over. Now, EV are there. If you look at all the main OEMs in the world, announced that they will shift totally to EVs. European Union announced that by 2035, only EVs will be allowed, or maybe it's another technology, but basically diesel, petrol cars will be banned. We need to make the life of, like user at the end easy and nice and affordable. That's the only question here. My second question, how will users' privacy be protected as more and more cars collect data? Will there be a future where a user can own an EV and not share driving data? One of the best questions, honestly.
That is spot on, Mukesh. That's the most important thing in the next 10, 15 years. And that's exactly what we're doing.
I think the public understood that your phone and maybe your laptop at some extent is capturing a lot about your life, is listening to you, knows about your face, what you do in your life. But they don't realize that also your car is part of this ecosystem. Even without your phone, your car will know if you have a cancer. If you have a cancer, you will go every week to a clinic specialized in cancer, and it will know that you're going here. If you're going to drink with your friends or whatever, it will know everything about your life there. Cars now, not many people know that, but they have cameras facing you. Like you have cameras outside. Okay, it's nice to help you park your car and everything, but they have, cameras inside the car. Now it's full of electronics, full of chips, full of cameras, and connected to something. We don't even know where it goes. So it's a huge problem, for the users, but also there is one more problem, which is for a country. So basically, these cars are recording everything that happens in your country. It can know, if there is a riot happening somewhere. It can know, a military facility. It can know, if there is a police, operation happening somewhere. Sometimes it will know about it before the own country itself, right? And that's a massive, problem we have, because all this data is collected at a scale that is, never seen, totally unprecedented in the history of mankind.
Government is not here to protect its citizens in the west or in the east of India from these tools. They will use those tools to their own advantage, like any other tool. When you have something, people will find their own interest and build around that. What we're trying to do, therefore, is globally important, harking back to this question previously, is to transform the way of mobility and using technologies and building technologies that allow people to take back control. That is really the core and fundamental of what we are doing, because of the future that will otherwise be inside of.
Spoiler alert, in November in Europe, you will see that if the situation with Russia is not solved, the smart meters people have in the houses will be, switch off or totally controlled. And the cars that have, any access, also will be switched off, 100%. Next question, Abraham Shine. Sir, I'm pursuing BTech Mechanical Engineering. What are the skills required for getting into Pravec Dynamics? So it's not about the vision and everything, just purely on skills.
Okay, some key traits are which we talked about a bit earlier. Perseverance, curiosity, autonomy, the willingness to not give up. These are key, and also the ability to so in general, whenever you're building something new or I'll give you a very simple example. Even if we look at something as simple as cooking food, there are a lot of details within that. If you put a spice in too early, or if the oil is way too hot, you miss out on one detail, and the end result would not be very good. So what I mean to say is, it's not that one specific skill set is good enough. The ability to, or the willingness to continuously grow, to continuously absorb new facts, and get put two and two together.
Next, Sahil Bharadwaj. So it's a long question. To summarize it, he's asking, he's pointing out the fact that electric vehicles are more expensive than conventional vehicles, and that make them out of reach for a lot of consumers. How we can tackle that?
Electric vehicles are expensive. Yeah. So the running cost is lower, inherently that's better, and more on that, essentially at scale it will be cheaper on scale. Today the total population of electric vehicles from a global fleet viewpoint is less than 2%.
Yes.
Maybe 3%. In the case of two-wheelers, it could be up to 15-20%, purely because of China. In India, last month we had 27,000 registrations of two-wheelers, so it's a very small number. As the scale grows, it's how cameras are expensive, how phones are expensive.
I think that's something that people don't realize is the headroom for growth for ICE engine is done for 100 years. It's the winning product. So they did a lot of innovation for sure, but they reached, like a threshold somewhere. But for EV, the headroom is still, like big. We are at the beginning of this industry, so the size of the batteries, how much the density of the batteries, the price of everything, we scale down. But for sure, like today we are in a cycle where the early adopters, the people who can afford it, will start and make it, like more accessible for everyone else on the long run. Our thermal valves and actuators are ready for you. When will the production start? So can we talk a bit about so it's Robert Shaw. Can we talk a bit about the ecosystem of suppliers that has been built by Praveg?
Go ahead. We work with some of the best vendors in the world. We're very fortunate in that way. A lot of the reasons why that is the case, irrespective of that, we're extremely up for experimenting. We are here to take risks on every technological front. So we try and work with all vendors and everyone else who's willing to push out new stuff and work with us through thick and thin, of course.
Chandresh Verma, what do you think about global reserve supply and material availability for batteries? People overthink a bit the batteries. It looks like there are a lot of things. For example, a lot of people think there are rare earths in the batteries, which is not the case. In fact, there is no rare earths inside batteries. But for sure, you have lithium, you have other components, and you need to get them from far. And India, like for sure, we need to import. So here, what we suffer with in India is the fact that in some countries, not many in fact, but let's say it's US and China, they have a full support of their government to get these resources, right? There is this extremely famous tweet from Elon Musk where someone asked him why he's getting the help of CIA to do a coup in Bolivia. And he say, I coup whoever I want, something like this, right? And that's the mindset there, like they have, like the full country, like making them able to get resources. And in India, this culture doesn't exist. I think we are the only company in India, and we are not one of the largest companies in the country who knows how to do that. So we went to multiple countries. We went to Peru, Bolivia. Yeah, we can have some pictures if you want. And Indonesia also, we are very, very connected there and are getting resources from there. And even a country that no one knows, I think maybe I'm the only Indian who has ever been in this country. One of the very few, it's called Central African Republic. And Praveg is a partner of this whole country, which is a very big country. It's bigger than France and Belgium combined. And they have a lot of resources and they are very excited to work with India. So we are setting up, a full, logistics supply from this country to start to work with India. It will be the first business they ever do with India. And it will be to supply Praveg and our partners with resources. And they have everything there.
I mean, we have been extremely explorative people. However, in the recent past or in the recent history of India, we've been made to believe that we've always been within these borders, rather than subcontinental borders. I would call it continental at that time. But in those borders, whereas that's not true, we've been traders and we've been exploring corners of the world since time beginning, since time immemorial. And we need to accept that DNA again.
I think here India has a bad use of liberalism. US is portrayed as a super liberal country, which they are. It's very easy to start a company inside the boundaries of the country. They can do whatever they want. But when they go abroad, they are together. The government is there, the companies are together, they hunt in pack. There is no liberalism anymore. Like the government can tell, 3 companies who are bidding for the same tender. In India, for example, no, only one is doing and will support this company to win. And next time you will come, which is something that in India is always the way around. Business is difficult inside the country. It's not very liberal. But when we go outside, it's just like, good luck. You won't get any support from anywhere.
The world is not a meritocracy. You wish it was, but you cannot apply the same standards to India versus everywhere else. You cannot say that because Twitter is so good that who is unable to survive. It's not because of that. Who might be a good platform or might not be a good platform technically equivalent to Twitter. I don't know, but it's pretty comparable. Look at Hotstar, they've done a fantastic job of video delivery, better than Netflix for live sports across billions of devices or Joe. But they will never go global because they do not have the support structure of the capital market, of the intelligence community, of the government, of their president, or prime minister who's going outside and pushing coup on top of others, or Hotstar on top of others. They will never have the support structure of entire propaganda machinery, and they will never have the support structure of other social media platforms around them. I mean, and they will be competing in their own territory against internal politics, against external bureaucrats and external agencies. So
Ramakrishnan Angadipuram. Very technical question. We are talking here about being a rep.
So, high altitude, two variables change. One is the pressure, and other is, of course, as mentioned in the question, it's temperatures. So, covering the pressure, our batteries have mechanisms, and the batteries are more than capable enough of maintaining the pressures inside the pack. And with respect to temperature, so it's a really solvable problem. Like the rest of the industry also has solved it in many ways. Essentially, either you basically control the temperature of the pack, you heat it up. Now, what we are adding to it is we want to be more efficient doing that. So, all of you might have heard that in super cold temperatures, EV ranges they drop drastically. One key reason is it takes a lot of energy to heat up a battery pack. So, what we are doing is, I won't say that we won't need to heat up our packs, but what I can say is the way we do this would be way more efficient. We'll do the same thing with much less energy consumption.
And the higher you go, the better the solar generation is. So in fact, imagine a world where in high altitude regions, you don't even need a pipeline or tankers to continuously go and provide fuel to the northern forces, etc. You are self-sufficient, you have your energy infrastructure, and you can use that to charge these batteries and these cars. And that energy platform is used for all your end devices as well.
Siddharth Batra. Looking forward to see the Indian Tesla reaching success and waiting for the launch. That's a nice message, but there is something he's mentioned, which is the Indian Tesla. And that's something we never said. I mean, it's not offensive or other, like Tesla, it's a big company. But it's always funny that, like in India, lots of newspapers, if you just type Indian Tesla, you will find us, right? We have been labeled as the Indian Tesla, like without asking anything there. You always have to, be the Indian version of something made abroad.
The peak is the Indian LGN.
Yeah.
With that accent, Amit Khan is Indian top actor. Literally now. In some cases we did that. But most of the cases, everyone is trying to do. Ola, which started before Uber, is saying, not at all the case. Zomato is not the Indian version of what is that horrible app, Yelp. Zomato is not at all the Indian version of Yelp. It's so much better. UPI is not Indian Mastercard, US is so much better. Internet examples, you can go on.
Sanjay Singh, how will the geopolitical instability around the world impact the lithium supply chain for mining of lithium, enrichment and recycling? There is an interesting question here about resources. So as you know, I teach geopolitics for 10 years. So I got thousands of soldiers, high military officers, intelligence officers as students. And I have a lot of students who come from Africa. And most of them extremely well-spoken person, extremely smart person. But there is one thing, and I'm not saying with any, bad intention or everything. I think they focus a bit too much on the resources, right? Because Africa, for sure, is the richest place in the world in terms of resources. And they have this thinking that these resources are the most important thing in the world right now, right? They have a place, for sure, but they are not the most important part. I'll explain you why. If you are a big country, let's say where India is, aiming. If you're independent in terms of, you can create your own energy. You can create vehicles, you can create semiconductors, you can create battery cells, you can create IT, you can create AI, you can have everything there. If your only problem is to get some resources, you'll get them. There are a lot of ways to get resources. If you are South Korea, if you are Japan. First, you can pay a bit more, right? You can just pay a bit more than the guy next to you, and have these resources. Secondly, you can be a bad person. You can create political instability in the country. You can start a war. You can do a coup. You can corrupt people. That happens a lot. Or you can also, use a third party to trade with you. For example, let's say Brazil needs a lot of food from India, but they have resources. So you can trade that with them. If you have the high value products, if you have, IP and high value products, getting resources, everyone will give you. The guy will say, okay, you don't want to deliver me, for example, machines or clothes or medicine, for example. Let's take medicine. I'll fight my neighbor to give you resources to get medicine from you. when you are in that league, resources, it's in the name. It's a commodity market. There are a lot of ways for it. Maybe you will pay 5% more. That's not a big problem. But as I said, you need to have the value. You need to hold the value. That's why value is so important and being sovereign is so important there. So, no offense to all my African students, but you have much more in Africa than resources to leverage. The main resource of Africa is Africans. It's people. Bet on the people. Make them, companies, innovation, everything. That's what resources are fine, but to control your resources, you need a lot of strength. It's very difficult. And even inside India, there are some parts of India, in the west of India, they have no resources. They do very well. My family is from Uttar Pradesh. It's the most, full of resources part of India. And it's going better and better, but, it's not because you have resources that you will succeed. It's not because you're the best one, as you were saying, that you will succeed. So I'm not scared at all about this part. And we know how geopolitics work, so we'll get everything. No problem. Dr. Naveen Singh, dear team, my best wishes for your endeavors. Just for the information, please elaborate about your data side, Terascale data acquisitions.
Terra is a play on terabyte also, and Terra has also, because we can actually data a lot. Each car has a ton of sensors. We almost process and collect 144 MB of data per second. How we do it in a privacy respecting manner and all is because it's open, you can opt into the data, opt in, not opt out, individual data. We don't provide controls, so many other things. But essentially, each car is a server or computer or field with a very, very powerful processing system on board. And it can essentially identify any anomaly and report back only about that anomaly and not about other things in the environment, so that the systems can become better and that we can become better. And that's really the Terascale acquisition part of it.
Rajiv Anand, where do you see the four-wheeler EV market in the next 5 to 10 years in India? Do you think biodiesel vehicles will provide competition to EVs, considering that increase in EV would mean more power plants and hence biodiesel may be another option?
Yeah, I think these solutions will coexist for a while, but these are not solutions which will last for a long time. Maybe for certain industries. Again, time is one crucial factor here. For example, the trucking industry. Today, all of us have heard of the Tesla Semi. Good product, but super expensive. Where do you figure out? You need a lot of batteries to build a truck. We already know how many we need to build a car.
And also, it puts a lot of pressure on the road.
Exactly.
Built for those kind of pressures.
Exactly. Then there are issues each truck is certified to carry a certain amount of weight, total weight of the entire system. So if you add batteries, you're losing out on how much cargo you can actually carry.
So the other question for Rajesh was about how much energy more will we need power plant.
Yeah.
For any meaningful deployment of electric vehicles in India, we need at least 6x the power of what we would need to do. 2 years ago, I don't have any number, but it could be 5x now. But 5 to 6x of what we can do in India so far. And generation is easy. Ramping up condition is super easy. Transmission is fairly easy. We've got a very good transmission grid. PGCIL manages 70-80% of it alone. They're doing a fantastic job. We've got those HVDC lines from Assam to Varna. We've got more HVDC. I mean, transmission is not the problem. But the discounts.
Distribution.
Discounts. So we have 2 megawatts of power generation over here on diesel. We burn diesel to make batteries. So
Don't say it.
Discounts are really the bottleneck that we see in the infrastructure right now.
What types of vehicles Praveg will offer to the Indian Armed Forces? Transport, assault, special operation vehicle. And next is what needs of the armed forces can the company meet? So there, as you know, in this sector, there is nothing much planned for them. And the way they use vehicle is very different because their life is at risk there. So as we discussed a bit earlier, EVs have some advantages. They have some down part offshore, let's be honest, but they have some advantages for armed forces. The center of gravity is very low, so it's good for in hard terrain. Makes no noise. You don't need a full supply chain of petrol, which can be an advantage and a problem also at the same time. No heat signature, and in altitude also it can be quite interesting. So yeah, we discussed with the Indian Army, and they need to have EVs there. And there is also one more usage that is quite important, is the fact that now each infantry soldier, his full basically is connected. He has a lot of electronic devices on his gun, on his belt, in his backpack, everything. So you need to recharge these devices, right? But where? Will you burn diesel inside the car to supply a DigiSet and then use the current, use this current to recharge a torchlight, for example? That makes no sense. When you have an EV, you basically have a huge power bank on wheels that you can use anywhere. For one application, for example, is what we call a command center for officers. They have a lot of laptops, they have communication devices and everything. And having, an EV on the field can be a very good way, to run all these devices and, control the whole battlefield. How many military vehicles will the company be able to produce for the Indian Armed Forces? We don't know. Does the company have one or more prototype vehicle for military use? Yes, we do. Will the military vehicles only be intended for the Indian armies or also for allied countries of India? Yeah, so first, countries don't have allies. I mean, they have, some common interests shared at some particular points, I would say. And certainly they don't have friends, that's for sure. But today, if we want to enter this sector, we need to, work with countries who can pay upfront for development of engineering to do products. And the Indian Army doesn't have that, unfortunately. So maybe we'll need to go to some, smaller countries who have, good budget for R&D to develop a vehicle with them. And then maybe after that, these engineering costs will be amortized. We'll be able to supply the vehicle for the Indian Army. Will the maintenance of military vehicles be provided by Praveg, or will soldiers be trained for the maintenance? Anyone will be trained. Not only soldiers, it will be on YouTube. Anyone can repair a Praveg car. Will Praveg cooperate with other major military companies Indian offering? We already do. We already do that. We are not like a pure defense company, so we need the expertise of pure defense company to build a product. Then a funny question. Will Praveg supply a VIP vehicle to Rishi Sunak if he becomes the next British PM? So first, why not Priti Patel? She can also become a PM. Honestly, the answer is very simple. Pay for it, we'll give you the car, no problem.
And we accept ancient artifacts.
Yeah, and we'll give it to India. We'll keep it in the office. The next question is from Rohit Bansal, who's the head of communication of a small SME called Reliance, and I think he's the most senior and expert communication person in this whole country. And he says he has 3 questions, but what I read, there are like 20 questions, in fact. Communication people. The EV market is quite crowded already. Is it true or not? Is the EV market packed?
It depends on what you'd like to define as packed, but there are 4 billion cars to be made in the next 15, 20 years globally. So I would argue that there is enough and more headroom to grow. That's why you see a lot of new players trying to enter the market. And it's not just about the EV market, it's about how the market will evolve to further things in different aspects of autonomous vehicles and energy systems around the electric vehicle, data technologies around the electric vehicle, and so on. So I would argue that there are not enough players in India who are doing this. We need probably more players in India who are doing similar things. China, you've got 20 companies doing this: Hi-Fi, Shopping, Neo, BYD. These are just 4 of the largest. Li Auto. There are so many more. Geely, Geely, Lincoln Co. Geely has 5 of them under Geely. US has got, of course, Tesla, GM, Ford, the big 3, the Lucid, you've got a ton of them. So what we're essentially doing is prepping India as and we'll serve it to them on a platter in the future. They will come in and they will scoop the market the way Oneida TVs were made in India, etc. After that, no one else was there. There wasn't enough healthy competition. There was not just about healthy competition, but there wasn't enough players to be innovating for the market, and therefore the mind space of the consumer was now blocked for Indian companies. And then the Chinese came in and swooped the market. The Koreans came in first, and then the Chinese came in and swooped the market from the hands of Japs and Indians to Koreans and now to the Chinese. Same thing will happen in automotive, I think, with the Americans and the Chinese coming in. And again, a lot of the companies that are operating in India today, there are just two other companies except Praveg, which are truly Indian, which is Tata and Mahindra. Mahindra and Praveg have something in common, that Mahindra's one of the founders was Pakistani and now is Pakistani. So, Mohammed and Mahindra, he went to Pakistan, he came from Pakistan. So,
I was born here. Come on.
Mahindra bought Reva, right? And great company, awesome engineering talent. And today they're just in the deal, and I'm not sure if the ink is even dried up, but they're going to be taking stuff from Volkswagen, essentially, the skateboard. What that would mean is, sure, that right now they might be able to do some trading business, and they'll never get the margins of what they are making of Chinese companies with demand. Similar thing for Tata. Everything inside the Ziptron platform is Chinese batteries, Goshan. The motors are Prestolite, which is again Chinese. Essentially everything is Chinese. The autonomous systems inside Mahindra, Mobileye, same in Tata, either they are Continental or one of the other traditional vendors. We need companies in India who will be doing all of these things from ground up. In two-wheelers, we have fantastic examples. We have TVS, Mahindra, we have all of these things. Exactly. And because there is precedent in India that Indian companies are able to take over global markets, except Indonesia, we are able to take over two-wheeler markets in Spain, so from Europe to West Europe to Africa, South America, East Europe, Asia, Cambodia, everywhere we are able to take over the market. So there is precedent, and you see so many companies, startups such as Simple, Ather, Ola, so many others, I don't even know the names. Bigos, yeah. So many two-wheeler guys, and they will all flourish. There is no doubt of the market.
Following up, global auto majors are already pouring billions into it. For sure, money helps, especially in things like creating like a network of distributors and marketing and everything. It helps a lot, and it's the main cost in the car industry. I don't know if you know, but when you buy a car, you pay mainly for marketing and distribution network. But there is a question also, like for sure, Praveg is not pouring billions there, but then why half of the global, OEMs are coming to Praveg today for some help to make their own cars? So why these guys have thousands and thousands of engineers who are 160? Maybe the time the video will be out will be 164. But why do they come to us?
In a market which has just started out, in an innovative market, they are stepping on their own feet. Their processes are dragging them down. Whatever they may say that we have a startup division that acts like a startup, it never truly acts like a startup. It cannot, by nature of it.
Also, there is a view that the charging infra is far from adequate. True, but it's a chicken and egg problem. You need, more vehicles, and then because you have more vehicles, people will set up charging infra. Just an opportunity. Besides, EVs aren't as eco-friendly as some make them out to be. It's a very good question. In fact, if you look about the whole picture of mobility, there are multiple types of mobility. The first base mobility is like short distances. So you walk, you have a cycle, and honestly, the best mobility you can have. If you ask us what is the main thing Indian government should do in this country to increase mobility, I would say sidewalks. That's what we need the most in this country. That would help a lot, right? Then there is a public transportation sphere, which is again, very, very efficient, So making trains, metros, everything is very, very important. Then you cannot remove the the personal transportation, personal vehicles and everything. So there, you have a fight between the traditional, ICE engines and the EVs there. So how are the EVs positioned in these things? So there are three parts in the life cycle of a product. You make a product because you need to look at the whole picture, right? You need to make the product, then you will utilize it for like a certain amount of time, and then you need to recycle it, give it a end of life, what I say. So when we make just building the products, EVs are not very, very good. They require a lot of resources to be made, a lot of electronics to be made. So they are not like the most ecological thing in the world. And then, like you will see in 1 second, and like compiling 2 tons of like electronics, raw materials, everything will never be as green as a cycle, right? We need to be very honest about that. So when you make these assets, you require a lot of resources and energy. Now the question becomes, for its life, electric cars have the one first advantage, which is they don't emit much particles compared, like to traditional vehicles. So you won't have, like a dirty city with a lot of particles there, and it saves a lot of life. The amount of people who die in India every year because of this problem is huge. So you save a lot of lives there. Here, what is important is what is this asset? Who is this asset used? If you just, like buy a car and use it the average in India is like 5% of the time and a car is used. You create these 2 tons of like, this 2-ton vehicle full of resources to basically never use it. Yeah, plastic, metal, electronics, semiconductors, everything for like absolutely no reason. So that's why, like we embrace the fleet model, because if these assets can be used as much as possible, you lean towards the public transportation format. You're not a train, I'm not saying that, but you lean towards this format, right? The second problem is for how long this product will be used. If I make an asset, maybe it will cost a lot of resources, but if it's used for 50 years, it's fine. If it's used for 3 years, it's a big problem. The problem of the industry where we sit is planned obsolescence. All these products are made to fail after a very, very short amount of time. Most of the time you say, the time of the insurance will be the time of your product. Everyone say, like, warranty, sorry, like my product, yeah. but my warranty is like 4 years and my car just broke down after 4 years, like, no luck. It's not about luck, right? Like it's prepared, there.
The industry spends billions of dollars making sure that it lasts.
Exactly. 1 week after the warranty, yeah. So when you design, and like the best engineers in the world design products for them to fail after a particular amount of time because they want you to give you another set of keys and you to come back and sell you another car, it's a huge problem here. Maybe it's the main problem of this industry. So what we do here, it's not what the whole industry does, but we make cars that are repairable, and you can repair by yourself and are made to never fail, basically. Like as long as the technology, enables it, the car is made like to sustain. And then the last part is, like the end of life. What do you do with the car when, there will be a point where you won't be able to use the car anymore, right? So there, in an electric car, you can reuse a lot of things, right? The battery by itself, maybe after, like 15 years, won't be very good for a car application, for mobility application, but you can put it in a solar farm, you can put it in a house, you can put it, like to do an arbitrage, like in a grid. So there are a lot of applications for batteries at the end of life. And the more you control the fleet, the more you control the ecosystem, the more you'll be able to know where this car is at the end of life, get the battery back and reuse it. And all the resources we use, like like plastics, come like from fishing nets, recycled fishing nets. It's a fully vegan car. We get a lot of parts, like from recycle everything, and we can recycle them again after. So if you look at the whole picture, it won't be a perfectly green vehicle. It will never be. But we are, like turning slowly towards the public transportation model.
And in utilization and fleet, we make sure that the cars are coming to get charged at a time where solar power, wind power, and other renewable sources of energy are available. So we are as clean as it gets for a car. We're closer to cycles and public infra than cars.
This flows into my second question. I mean, it's not the second question, it's the seventh at least. Why Praveg?
So, we are very focused on what we need to see as a change in the world, and that's not just our vision of the world, that's the vision of a lot of people in the world. Not just from an ecological perspective, which is very important, but mostly from the perspective of where and how technology is being driven today. We need an alternate school of technology. We need to move away from the technological, the pervasive approach or philosophy of technology, which is China and US essentially, from vulturous, scavenging technologies to more of enabling true and respecting true sovereignty, freedom, and ensuring the true identity of people. Today, there are so many people who are falling out of the system. They're getting deplatformed. They're getting spied upon. Everyone is getting spied upon, but they're getting more deplatformed. People are falling out of favor of technology the way it is. And they're all demanding, if you look at the comments, if you look at the question, they're all demanding more privacy respecting technologies where they can feel they're back in control and they're starting to take that control back. That is why you have trillions of dollars companies like Apple spending a lot of marketing money on privacy. Although, it's double speak, it's essentially real politics. They might be spending the marketing money. They actually have backdoors and all by law. They cannot have it otherwise. The Cloud Act in the US or the Chinese laws, so many regulations. So that is, I think, the change that people want to see in the world. It's not the mainstream market today, but there is a very small niche of people who need and want to see that change. Ask the people in Hong Kong. Ask the people, truck drivers in Canada who were protesting and their accounts were frozen. Ask the Gilets jaunes in France, where they were protesting and their accounts were frozen. They were taken away their social security, their rights, their benefits. Everything was locked down. Ask the people who are tracked by Uber for their own litigious purposes or their political purposes. Those Uber files were out recently. Look at any of these things. Ask Edward Snowden, ask all of these guys, Julian Assange. I mean, they are the people who are locked up for making those technology tools and structures known to people.
Finally, the third given complaints by many startups that they would rather flip. So that I need to explain a little bit because outside the startup world, this problem is not very known by the public. So in India, you have, let's say, to make it broad, like 3 types of companies. The small startups, and there I think there are a lot of help by the Indian government and everything. They help you a lot to grow there, and it's great. There are the very large companies. Large companies have access to like a lot of bank loans, PLIs, everything. There are a lot of schemes for them, so that's great. But if you're in the middle, if you're like, like a established company with years, and you have this, it's not very, very, like easy. Your life won't be very, very easy. And the problem is, if it was just difficult, it would be okay. But the problem, it's more easier if you come from abroad. If you're the same size company and you enter the Indian market from abroad, you can say, yes, I want to set up shop in India. What do you give me? And then the Indian government will give you, like access to land, tax reduction. You will have a lot of help. You will have someone to talk to get all these things. So a lot of companies in India are doing this thing called flip. What is a flip? Basically, you have an Indian company, you change the headquarters in another country. It can be Dubai, can be Delaware in the US, can be Singapore. There are multiple options, multiple people, multiple places in the world will welcome you. So many great companies are leaving India and coming back under the umbrella of a foreign country. So if you want to explain what is your position there?
So again, all of this is not for taxes or anything. I mean, if you look at the tax policy that we fall under, today our company tax is only at 17% because we started manufacturing between 2019 to 2023. So any company who's in hard manufacturing, which is at par, if not lower than Hong Kong or, any of these jurisdictions. Singapore would be honestly more expensive. So it's not about a mechanism of avoiding tax or anything. I mean, it's not at all that. In fact, the mechanisms of avoiding tax are the ones you need to ask Apple and Microsoft and all those guys. I mean, the kind of royalties they pay to their parent companies, kind of skewed. One must look into those things. But essentially, this is for a couple of reasons. A, the perspective of Indian policy is extremely skewed towards foreigners entering India. It is not built as an ecosystem which will be resilient and robust and build upon itself. We move from a position of mistrust for Indians in policy. All this is in policy framework. There is an inherent mistrust towards Indian companies and there is an inherent trust towards foreign companies by policy. Even if the same person is running it, even if the same thing is happening, it's literally what policy is defined as. I can cite in numerous examples. Similarly, a foreign company is protected under foreign investor treaties, so which is between countries essentially. So instead of battling it out with local courts, you're essentially getting geopolitical strata involved, thereby reducing various burdens. Thirdly, the criminal liability for something is unlimited in India. So, with one scooter fire, people go absolutely berserk. I mean, Toyota still catch fire, Tesla still catch fire, and no one even talks about that because they are able to manage the perception very well. Because India is very honest, we feel that there is no bad things that happen in the rest of the world, or rather mistakes that happen in the rest of the world. There's no reason to hound Ola, Ather or whatever for a fire or two. I mean, look at any example of anyone else. But here, suddenly people are up in arms, policymakers are up in arms, that how can there be fires? Man, at the same week, there will be 10 Teslas catching fire and no one will talk about that. They'll be welcoming them with red carpets and Ola ke piche sab pade. I mean, that's absolutely, utterly nonsensical. However, the point is that there will be a lesser risk for a foreign entity to ply into an Indian ecosystem for innovation than an Indian person themselves to ply into innovation, this thing in India. That's why you see a host of companies leaving and setting up shop elsewhere. Our position on it is pretty straightforward. I think anyways our capital is not from India, it's all from abroad, unfortunately. But that's the way it is.
But in what you said, there is one part which is quite sad, is the fact that if you make anything great and Praveg, or there are like thousands of companies there, we have a huge chance is we have an international exposure. I was an NRI, I lived 20 years in France, so I have a network here. You studied abroad, you live abroad, you had companies abroad, everything. So we are extremely lucky. We are in the 1% lucky people who can go abroad and talk to people. Because inside India, there is no capital. There is no money for there. And if you don't have deep pockets, either you have deep pockets or you need to go abroad. There are only two options you're left with, like in India, if you want to make something.
Or you give 90% of your company to an American VC and get 20 of those guys on your board. So the silver lining in all of this is that now the question comes where Rohitji is asking that why India? I think that these are the problems that allow us an opportunity. See, today there are 1.4 billion people in the country. Hopefully we'll be 2-3 billion in the next few years. It won't be the case, but whatever. So as we go forward, that is the opportunity that we have unto ourselves. We are a burgeoning youth. We are a demographic dividend unlike any other. We have the ability to reap demographic dividends, unlike any other nation in the world. If we are able to make things better, we are basically impacting 20% of the world population. Even if 5 companies flip in the country who are worth 10, 20, 100 billion, doesn't matter. What matters is whether we are able to create an ecosystem on the backs of or bear the brunt of the front line or the spearhead. When a spear attacks something, the spear tip will typically get blunted or break, one of the two. Break in a very minor microfracture way. Anyways, I won't get into that. However, it will get blunted, the blade. However, that blade, we have the opportunity of being that spear tip. Not just Praveg. I'm not talking about Praveg, but I'm talking about all of the companies today doing difficult things in these problems. Ideally, we should band together and break through all of this because collectively, I don't see a problem in that. And that is the optimism that keeps us in India. That is the reason why we're here. Because not only is the opportunity for impact massive, but the reason of impact and the possibility of impact is infinite. It's absolutely crazy, crazily large. Again, I would call for everyone to band together and be us versus the world. It's a theoretical fool's errand, I would say. But I mean, there have been dreams which have been more foolish and they've worked. So if we do this, we can really have a massive, massive, massive impact on the world. Not Praveg again, not us personally, but us as a nation, us as a generation. We can do something almost impossible. Okay, let's move to Twitter.
I'm curious about the first Indian electric car. I don't think we are the first Indian electric car. But the question is interesting. Is it really all Indian? When is the launch? Tell us about your journey. Jai Hind.
No, we've been very fortunate. Shazia has been an ardent supporter.
Yeah, she came here. She saw everything here. Yeah. And thank you.
And excited to this thing. Most of the components are Indian. There are 2 components which cannot be Indian, which By mass, we are 80% Indian. By value, it's quite the other way around because those industries don't exist in India. We have a lot of semiconductors in the car. We have a lot of electrochemical compounds which are not made in India yet. By 2024, we expect all of the chemicals also to move to India and semiconductors to remain outside of India. In 2028, we should be fully Indian.
Suraj K. Super stoked to see an Indian EV made for India. What's the battery capacity and charge time for the first production version?
Okay, you can charge it 0 to 80% within 30 minutes.
Next question is from Not What You Think. What are your yearly production capabilities? And how many types of segment of car are you targeting to enter in Indian market? It's always funny people say to enter the Indian market. We are Indian. we are not flipping. We are not entering the Indian market.
So next year we should be able to manufacture 2,500 cars. Today we have a battery factory which can do 500 megawatt hours of battery per year for automotive and defense. And the segments, the ultimate goal in the next 5-7 years, not the ultimate goal of the company, but the goal of the engineering is to make the lowest cost per kilometer vehicle in the world in the next 4-5 years, in the next 2-3 years. So whatever it takes, life cycle cost, not capital cost. Whatever it takes to make that, we are going to do that.
F1 Chronicle. Hey Pravek team, where is the car going to hit the road first? India. Yeah. Why can't we can use dual battery system with auto charging while driving technology on EV?
Because of science.
Santoshi Nayak. When can we expect Pravek car available on the road?
Soon.
Nagaraj Pillai. Pravek, when is it expected to hit the ground? How it will be different than others? It grows plant and so on. I think we have any way to phrase about asking a date. Any way in English to ask this question has been used there. Akshi Dengel. In the upcoming years, will the Pravek car get more software updates or more hardware updates? That's a very good question. In fact, the first thing is still a very recent time. You used to buy a car and that's it. Like there was no change possible on the car. Recently, some car manufacturers and Tesla for sure, like Reva introduced that and Tesla made it, like I would say, like popular to have software updates. So like you just drive your car and every month you will have a patch and like have new features enabled and that's cool. But today there is no really hardware update. And if you look at a car, you have different type of components and these components don't age at the same pace. If you take a regular car and you look at the engine, it will take a lot of time, like because before it gets and looks, like and sounds old. It's fine, you can run it for years and years. But if you look at the screen, for example, it became, like a very central part of the car recently. If you look at the screen, because the car industry is very, very slow, so the time they purchase, like a screen, put it in a car and sell it, the car will look old very, very quickly. So even if you just buy a car second-hand that is 2-3 years old, the screen will look less good than maybe your phone, right? But you cannot change it. The manufacturer, the OEM will make sure that, like the screen is locked, and if you want to have a better screen, you need to buy the new, like 1.5 tons of this car. So that's really something, and you can elaborate on that we want to tackle.
In fact, this is one thing which, so to answer your question, software is obvious, but hardware is also something, certain aspects of it would be upgraded. In fact, this goes with the philosophy of increasing the life cycle, modularity, right to repair or right to upgrade.
And you don't have to buy a part from Pravek. It's an ecosystem. Then anyone will be able to integrate the ecosystem and make parts, or you can 3D print it at home, or you can just make it yourself or buy from another vendor.
How there are mobile SDKs, we are making a hardware SDK as well. Hardware development kit.
Omkar. When will be the launch? Which battery chemistry? Lithium-ion or LFP?
Okay. So they're both run by, based on lithium, but we use all derivatives of lithium chemistries.
Sheldon, how do you plan on competing with EV of established ICE companies like Tata, Maruti Suzuki, and Hyundai?
we're not trying to compete again. I mean, the way we see the world, the way our vision of the world is, it's very different. It's not for everyone. Today, it's a niche of people who view the world in the way we do, and we're really catering to them. Those are the people that we are building for. People who like privacy, people who want privacy, whether it's diplomats, whether it's high officials, whether it's government people, whether it's normal people. For us, everyone needs to have that right. It's akin to right to life or freedom of speech, the right to privacy, sovereignty, and the right to own and repair your own things. We're really building only for those people, and in that sphere, no one else is there. Our value system is completely different from the mainstream as we speak. A dream 11 years in the making. We're on the very verge of getting a theoretical vision online, the very first step towards making that dream come true. We're going to conclude that step very soon. Every time you have a theoretical vision, it is not a straight line to that. There are ways and means and reasons why we must understand and accept the reality of the world that we live inside of and mold ourselves accordingly. Keeping in mind that and the fact that we are very fortunate to have such a strong community with us right now, behind us, who just don't believe in us, but have also added to our theoretical vision and our journey as to what their aspirations and their value systems are. The value systems that we want to bring out in the world, the value systems that they want to see in the world, whether it's privacy, sovereignty, right of repair, any of those things of how we are doing things, or the reasons why we exist as a company. We are very fortunate today to tell you that we have added those things into our journey. We are adding a vehicle for sale to you right away. This year, we are launching a vehicle for sale in limited numbers, but not so limited numbers. Dhawal, do you want to talk more about that?
Super hot SUV, 5 meters long, 500 kilometers range, 410 horsepower, all-wheel drive.
So this year, post Diwali, you can book yours and you will be able to feel the design, see the capabilities, and order it online.
It's not even about the products that Praveg makes. It is about how we can protect each citizen, each city, and our civilization. How we can become the flag bearers for the rest of the world. We are going all in into making sure that that comes true. Take back control.